June 4th, 1942. For 28 hours. North Pacific Ocean, 325 miles northeast of Midway Atoll. Darkness clings to the sea like a hell breath. The Pacific is flat, almost polite, its surface broken only by the slow, disciplined wake of steel giants moving in silence. On the flight deck of a Kaji, flagship of the Imperial Japanese Navy's First Air Fleet, deck crews move with practiced efficiency. White glove hands check fuel lines. Leather helmets are pulled tight. Engines cough once, then settle into a low, hungry growl. The smell of aviation fuel mixes with salt air and sweat. No one speaks louder than a whisper. Above them, the sky is just beginning to thin from black to bruised blue. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto is not here on the deck. He is far to the west aboard the battleship Yamato, the largest warship ever built, watching the operation unfold from a distance. It is deliberate, detached, confident. This morning is supposed to end the war. For 6 months, the Imperial Japanese Navy has not known defeat. Pearl Harbor, Hong Kong, Wake Island, the Philippines, the British surrender at Singapore. Everywhere Japan has struck, the enemy has fallen back, stunned, burning, humiliated. The men on Akaji believe this too. They are being told they are luring the last American carriers into a perfectly prepared ambush. A final, crushing blow that will shatter U.S. naval power and force Washington to negotiate. Midway is the bait. The carriers are the hook. The Americans are expected to come late, confused, and blind. As the sun creeps higher, Commander Mitsu Fukaida, the same man who once led the attack on Pearl Harbor, stands watching aircraft roll forward. This time, he will not fly. An illness has grounded him. He does not yet know that this absence will save his life. One by one, aircraft are lifted into position. HED-3A Val dive bombers, Nakajima B-5 and Kate torpedo planes, Mitsubishi A-6M0 fighters, sleek and deadly, their pilots confident to the point of arrogance. They carry bombs meant for buildings, fuel depots, and runways. Not ships. That detail matters. It will matter more than anyone on this deck can imagine. At exactly 4:30, the first aircraft roared down the deck and lifted into the air, vanishing eastward toward Midway Atoll. The strike force forms up cleanly, a precise mechanical ballet against the morning sky. Behind them, the carriers turn into the wind and prepare for recovery. Everything is proceeding exactly as planned. On Midway, U.S. Marine Corps radar operators pick up the incoming formation. The blips are unmistakable. Too many, too fast. The alarm sounds across the island. Pilots run. Marine F-2A Buffaloes and F-4F Wildcats scramble into the sky, obsolete, underpowered, and outmatched. They climb anyway. They always climb. What follows is not a battle. It is a slaughter. Japanese Zeros tear through defenders with brutal efficiency. American aircraft fall burning into the sea. Parachutes blossom, then vanish. The sky fills with smoke, trace of fire, and spinning wreckage. On the ground, bombs walk across Midway's airfields. Hangars erupt. Fuel tanks detonate. Concrete cracks. The island shakes under repeated impacts. But Midway does not die. Runways are damaged, not destroyed. Anti-aircraft guns keep firing. Radio operators keep transmitting. And somewhere far beyond the horizon, something the Japanese do not believe exists is already moving. At 5:52, the Midway strike leader radios back to the carriers. Midway has not been neutralized. A second attack is required. On Akaji, the message ripples through the command structure. This is unexpected. Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, commander of the carrier force, stands on the bridge, binoculars raised. He is calm, but the calculation has begun. His aircraft are returning. His hangar decks are crowded with planes being refueled and rearmed. He has a decision to make. Rearm the reserve aircraft with land bombs to finish Midway, or hold them ready with torpedoes in case American ships appear. Doctrine says finish the mission. Instinct whispers something else. At 7:15, Nagumo gives the order. Rearm for a second strike on Midway. Below deck, crews rush to comply. Torpedoes are rolled away. Bomb racks are changed. Fuel hoses snake across hangar floors. Aircraft are packed wingtip to wingtip, loaded with volatile fuel and munitions. The carriers are now floating bomb factories. At 7:28, another radio call cuts through the routine. Enemy ship sighted. The words hit like a physical blow. Nagumo stiffens. A follow-up transmission clarifies. Possibly a carrier. Possibly. The trap is supposed to be closing. But suddenly, the timing is wrong. Nagumo reverses the order. Stop rearming. Prepare anti-ship weapons again. Confusion spreads below deck. Half-swapped ordnance. Fuel lines disconnected and reconnected. Bombs moved, then moved again. Precious minutes bleed away as aircraft sit trapped in limbo, neither ready to launch nor safely stowed. Above deck, the Midway strike begins to return. Damaged, low on fuel, pilots desperate to land. The carriers turn into the wind once more. Recovery operations begin. The sky is now busy. The decks are cluttered. The hangars are full. The fuel vapors are thick enough to taste. And still, no one sees the Americans, because they are not where Yamamoto expects them to be. They are not charging blindly into the trap. They are already inside it. Far to the east, 3 U.S. Navy carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown, have launched everything they have. Torpedo squadrons flying low and slow. Dive bombers climbing high into the sun. Pilots gripping controls with hands slick from sweat. They know the odds. Many will not return. As the first American torpedo planes break through the Japanese defensive screen, flying just above the waves, Zeros dive to meet them. The sky fills with fire. The sea begins to claim men and machines. And high above it all, unseen and unchallenged, another group of American aircraft is still climbing, searching for something they have not yet found. The Japanese carriers continue their recovery operations, unaware that in just minutes, the war in the Pacific is about to pivot on a single, irreversible moment. June 4th, 1942, 9:18 hours. Over the waters north of Midway, the American torpedo planes arrive first. They come in low, too low, barely 50 feet above the waves, engines straining, spray kicking up beneath their wings. From the bridges of the Japanese carriers, they look almost pitiful, slow, outdated, hopelessly exposed. Douglas TBD devastators, obsolete even before the war began, push forward anyway. There is no escort above them. The promised fighter cover never found them in the vast emptiness of the Pacific. You can imagine the pilots inside those cockpits, sweat stinging their eyes, hands locked on throttles, knowing exactly what waits ahead. Lieutenant Commander John Waldron leads Torpedo Squadron 8 from USS Hornet. He knows they are alone. He knows their chances are close to zero. But he flies straight toward the enemy regardless, because someone has to. Japanese lookout shout warnings. Zeros peel off from their patrols and plunge downward like hawks. The slaughter begins almost immediately. Cannons tear into devastators. Wings disintegrate. Engines erupt into flame. Aircraft slam into the sea at full speed, vanishing in white plumes of water and smoke. Still, the torpedo planes keep coming. They fly straight. They do not break. They do not turn back. On Akagi, gunners fire until barrels glow hot. Tracers streak past cockpits. Pilots watch their wingmen vanish one by one. A torpedo splashes into the water, two filed. Another runs true, then misses as a carrier turns sharply into the wind. No hits. Only death. Torpedo Squadron 8 is annihilated. Of 15 aircraft, only one pilot survives, Ensign George Gay, floating in the wreckage, watching the battle unfold from the water. And yet, their attack changes everything. The Zeros are dragged down to sea level, locked in desperate combat. Japanese combat air patrol is scattered, fuel burning fast. Formation discipline breaks as pilots chase targets low and far from carriers. Moments later, Torpedo Squadron 6 arrives from Enterprise. They meet the same fate. Then Torpedo Squadron 3 from Yorktown. More smoke. More wreckage. More American aircraft torn apart before they can release their weapons. The sea becomes a graveyard of twisted metal and floating debris. From above, the Japanese carriers appear untouched. But the sky above them is empty. No Zeros at altitude. No eyes watching the sun. High above, nearly invisible against the pale blue, American dive bombers finally find what they've been searching for. Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey of Enterprise had been flying on fumes, his fuel gauge nearly dry. He should have turned back. Doctrine says he is already too late. Then he sees it. A single Japanese destroyer, Arashi, racing north at full speed, cutting a white scar across the ocean. McCluskey understands instantly. That destroyer is rejoining the fleet. He turns his squadron to follow its wake. And suddenly, the impossible happens. Below them, 4 Japanese aircraft carriers sit in perfect formation. Akagi, Kaga, Tsuraiu, and Hiryu, decks cluttered with aircraft, fuel hoses still attached, bombs stacked in rows. They are at the worst possible moment in the worst possible configuration. Fully fueled, fully armed, fully exposed. The American dive bombers roll over and begin their descent. Sirens scream on the Japanese ships as lookouts finally spot them, black specks falling straight down out of the sun. It is too late. At 10:22 hours, the first bombs hit. A 1,000-pound bomb punches through Kaga's flight deck and detonates in the hangar below. The explosion ignites fueled aircraft, stack bombs, and torpedoes in a chain reaction that tears the carrier apart from the inside. Seconds later, Akagi is struck near the island. The blast rips through the hangar deck, igniting fuel vapor. Flames race through corridors faster than men can run. On Tsuraiu, 3 bombs hit in rapid succession. Fires explode outward, trapping crews below deck. In less than 5 minutes, 3 of Japan's 4 fleet carriers are burning uncontrollably. The shock is absolute. This is not a battle anymore. It is a catastrophe. Vice Admiral Nagumo watches helplessly as his flagship becomes a furnace. Damage control teams fight bravely, but the fires are unstoppable. Ammunition detonates. Steel buckles. The ship lifts as water floods in. Somewhere in the chaos, Commander Fukaida stands frozen, watching history collapse around him. The men of the Imperial Japanese Navy, veterans of Pearl Harbor, the Indian Ocean Raid, and countless victories, are now fighting simply to survive. But the battle is not over. One carrier remains untouched. Hiryu, Admiral Taman Yamaguchi, refuses to withdraw. He launches counterstrikes immediately, his pilots flying toward the American fleet with deadly precision. They find USS Yorktown. Bombs hit. The carrier shudders. Fires rage. For a moment, it appears Yorktown is finished. Then, miraculously, damage control teams restore power. Smoke clears. The ship resumes flight operations. The Japanese pilots, believing they have sunk her, report success. Yamaguchi launches a second wave. They find Yorktown again. This time, torpedoes strike true. The carrier finally falls silent, dead in the water. For a brief moment, it seems the Japanese have clawed something back from the abyss. But even as Yorktown burns, American dive bombers are already returning, this time toward Hiryu. The last intact carrier, Japan's once invincible force, now stands alone against the full weight of American air power. And the sky above her is once again filling with falling shapes. June 4th, 1942. 17:03 hours. North Pacific Ocean, west of Midway. Smoke marks Hiryu's position long before she comes into view. From miles away, American pilots see it rising into the late afternoon sky, a dark column, thick and oily, betraying the last surviving carrier of the once perfect Japanese formation. The ocean around her is littered with escorts maneuvering desperately, their wakes crossing and recrossing like nervous handwriting. On Enterprise and Yorktown's remaining decks, the mood is no longer disbelief. It is focus. Pilots climb back into cockpits without ceremony. Many of them have already flown one mission today. Some have watched friends die. Others have barely had time to drink water before being waved forward again. They go anyway, because this is it. From Enterprise, Lieutenant Commander O. Gallagher leads Bombing Squadron 10. From Yorktown, Max Leslie's dive bombers form up once more. The sun is lower now, no longer directly overhead, but the advantage remains. Japanese defenses are thinner. Fuel is lower. Fatigue is everywhere. On Hiryu, Vice Admiral Taman Yamaguchi stands on the bridge, calm and rigid. He knows what has happened. He understands the scale of the disaster. 3 carriers gone. Thousands of A crew lost. Men who cannot be replaced. Still, he refuses to retreat. To withdraw now would mean admitting that the impossible has happened. At 17:05, the first American dive bombers roll into the attack. The descent is steep. The air screams around the aircraft. The target grows impossibly fast. Japanese anti-aircraft fire erupts, black bursts, orange flashes, tracers clawing upward. Gunners fire until their shoulders ache, until the sky itself seems to be burning. It does not stop the bombs. One slams into Hiryu's forward elevator, punching straight through to the hangar deck. Another detonates near the bridge, ripping open steel and flesh alike. A third explodes amid parked aircraft, igniting fuel and ammunition in a chain reaction eerily similar to what consumed the other carriers that morning. Fire races across the deck. Within minutes, Hiryu is mortally wounded. Yamaguchi does not order abandoned ship. He does not leave the bridge. Alongside him stands Captain Tomio Koku. Both men know the traditions. Both understand the symbolism. As darkness approaches, survivors are ordered off the ship. Destroyers pull alongside, taking aboard the wounded and the lucky. Flames illuminate the night sky, reflected in the water like a burning city. Yamaguchi remains. So does Koku. At 5:10 the next morning, Hiryu is scuttled by her own escorts. She slips beneath the waves, taking with her the last heartbeat of Japan's carrier strike force. The first air fleet, Kido Butai, is gone. For the men in the water, for those pulled aboard destroyers, for those watching from miles away, the silence that follows is overwhelming. 4 Japanese fleet carriers lost in a single day. Over 3,000 sailors and airmen dead. The core of Japan's naval aviation, its elite pilots, deck crews, and commanders, wiped out in hours. This is not just a defeat. It is a rupture. Admiral Yamamoto received the reports aboard Yamato. One by one, the words confirm what he already senses. Akagi, lost. Kaga, lost. Sarayu, lost. Hiryu, lost. For the first time since the war began, the architect of Pearl Harbor understands that the balance has shifted. The Americans did not stumble into the trap. They dismantled it. Codebreakers at Pearl Harbor, men like Commander Joseph Rushford, had unraveled Yamamoto's plans weeks earlier, identifying AF as Midway, predicting the attack down to the date. Their warnings had been doubted, argued over, nearly ignored. But they were right. And because of that, American carriers were waiting, positioned not where logic said they should be, but where intelligence demanded they be. This victory is not loud. There is no immediate celebration. On Enterprise, sailors move quietly among the aircraft. Some stay out at the MTC. Others help wounded pilots down from cockpits, their faces hollow, eyes unfocused. They know what they've done. They also know the cost. The United States has lost Yorktown. Hundreds of aircrew are gone. Entire squadrons no longer exist. But the difference is this. America can replace them. Japan cannot. The industrial way to the United States is already grinding into motion. New carriers are under construction. New pilots are training. New tactics are being written even as the smoke clears. Japan's strategy, however, was built on decisive blows. Midway was supposed to be the final one. Instead, it has become the moment everything turns. Yet, the war is far from over. In Tokyo, the defeat is downplayed. The public is told little. The truth is buried beneath layers of secrecy and honor. But within the Imperial Japanese Navy, everyone understands. From this point forward, Japan will fight defensively, island by island, battle by battle, retreat by retreat. The Pacific is no longer theirs. And as the American carriers turn east, setting course for Pearl Harbor, the men aboard them sense, without quite naming it, that they have just crossed an invisible line. The war has entered a new phase. One where survival will depend not on arrogance or surprise, but on endurance. And the next battles will be longer, bloodier, and far less forgiving. June 7th, 1942. 2 p.m. hours. Central Pacific Ocean, south of Midway Atoll. The sea has returned to its old indifference. Wreckage drifts in slow, meaningless circles. Splintered wood, torn fabric, oil shimmering across the surface like a stain that refuses to fade. The fires are gone now. The thunder of engines has moved beyond the horizon. What remains is silence, broken only by the slap of water against steel hulls and the distant hum of American destroyers on patrol. For the men who survived Midway, this quiet is unsettling. On the deck of USS Enterprise, sailors lean against railings, staring out at the empty Pacific. Some have not slept in days. Others replay the same moments again and again. The sudden appearance of carriers below, the near-vertical dives, the explosions that bloomed like suns on Japanese decks. No one speaks loudly, because everyone understands what this place has become. A grave. In the days following the battle, recovery crews search the water for survivors. They find almost none. The ocean has claimed them quickly. Ensign George Gay, rescued after 30 hours afloat, is one of the last living witnesses pulled from the wreckage. His eyes are sunbound, his voice barely above a whisper as he tells what he saw from the water. American planes falling, Japanese carriers burning, history collapsing in real time. At Pearl Harbor, intelligence officers begin assembling the full picture. Signal intercepts, pilot reports, damage assessments. Each new confirmation adds weight to the realization spreading through the command. This was not just a victory. It was a strategic earthquake. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz studies the maps in silence. 4 red markers, once symbols of Japanese power, are now crossed out. The Imperial Navy still has battleships. It still has cruisers, but its offensive heart is gone. And hearts do not grow back. Across the Pacific, in Tokyo, the tone is very different. The loss is hidden behind vague communiques and controlled language. Families wait for letters that never arrive. Pilots who are supposed to be heroes vanish into absence. The truth is too dangerous to speak aloud. Because the truth is this: Japan has lost the initiative forever. From now on, every operation will be a reaction. Every advance will be temporary. Every loss will hurt more than the last. The Americans feel it too, not as triumph, as responsibility. Shipyards on the U.S. mainland accelerate. Keels are laid. Assembly lines stretch across cities. New Essex-class carriers take shape under welding arcs and floodlights, physical proof that this war will not be decided by one brilliant strike, but by relentless pressure. At Midway, the island itself is repaired. Runways are patched. Radar stations upgraded. The atoll becomes something else now, not bait, but a shield, a line that will not be crossed again. Veterans of the battle are reassigned, promoted, or buried. Lessons are written into manuals. Fighter tactics change. Carrier doctrine evolves. The chaos of June 4th becomes the foundation of a new kind of naval warfare, one where aircraft, not battleships, decide the fate of empires. Years later, historians will debate the margins, the minutes, the bombs that fell where they did. They will argue about chance, luck, and timing. But the men who were there know better. Midway was not luck. It was preparation meeting opportunity at the exact moment arrogance ran out of room. On that morning in June, Japan believed the Pacific belonged to them. By nightfall, the ocean had answered, and from its silence, a new balance of power emerged, one forged not in speeches or ceremonies, but in fire, steel, and a sudden understanding that nothing in war is permanent. Not dominance, not victory, not belief,